morning. Good morning. It is Tuesday at 10 o'clock and time for Tuesday's 10 o'clock talk. Okay, no, it's not Tuesday, it's Thursday. But, since I've got Win over in California and I got Cindy and you're over in Canada and I'm here in Springfield, so it's a little hard to know exactly what time it is or what day, but welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining me today. So the time, so Cindy, I just met you a few minutes ago, right? I was talking to Win about coming and sharing what's happening for her. I met her on a show that we do on Wednesdays here. It's called Changing Times. The Christian County presiding commissioner here and Dr. Mary Byrne. She's a leading educator and just a great community leader. They do interviews of difference makers. And they interviewed Win, I don't know if it was last year or earlier this year.
It was
And
earlier this year,
earlier this year, okay. And
March.
yeah, March, okay. And so when Win was sharing, and I heard her heart for China, for the Chinese people, for the history and just the culture, and then her story of uh, science and discovery and just learning truth, things that she thought was true and then found out wasn't true, and just sharing some of that journey, and then some of the work she was doing at that time with the human organ harvesting and some of those things. And so I've had an opportunity to talk with Win a few times, and I'll definitely want her to share a little bit of that story as well. And then I'm going to have Win introduce you to my mom and my uncle. I've got a big audience, at least those two are watching today. Win, just tell us a little bit about your story and how you got here, and a little bit about what you're doing and how you're connected to that community.
Thank you so much, Dennis. I'm so glad to be back to your show. I was born and raised in China, and I came to the United States in the mid 90s for graduate school. So when I was in China, I had a very good academic record. When I was 16 years old, I won a national prize in a science competition. That was how I could get into a top university and eventually came to the United States to study. So I received my PhD in the US from California Institute of Technology, and I have been working there since then as a staff scientist. And my background is in biology. And about 1 year after I came to the US, I learned from my colleagues, American colleagues, about the tank man, about the 1989 Tiananmen massacre when the Chinese government killed students on Tiananmen because students protested and asked for democracy. So this Tiananmen massacre was told to me in China in the opposite way. Because when I was in China, when I was a high school student, what I learned in China about Tiananmen massacre was that those students on Tiananmen killed soldiers. So you see, the truth I learned in China is the opposite to the truth I heard in the US. And it took me like at least 5 years to awake from this kind of lies that I learned in China. You know, at the beginning, I did not believe that Tiananmen massacre really happened. I couldn't believe that a government can kill innocent people
Right,
until I
because
was
the
able.
government was there to protect the people. The government was there to serve the people. Right? That's what you're told.
That's what we were told. That's what we were expecting, right?
Hmm.
And we couldn't expect a government like the government of China can kill innocent people. And more to that, the whole government can lie to cover up the massacre. And it took me years to awake from this propaganda that I learned in China, right? You have to break one lie after another lie until by the end of the time I realized, okay, all my life what I learned in China was a big lie. And for I need to do something about it. I need to do something to tell Chinese people, to tell American people what is going on in China. So in the past 25 years, I have been an activist for human rights in China, and I mostly speak about the atrocities that ever happened in the Communist Party's history, right? The Cultural Revolution that my parents lived, the Tiananmen massacre, and nowadays the persecution towards Falun Gong, a
Yeah.
peaceful meditation practice in China.
Right. And just real briefly, because I think this is important too, is the way your parents experienced that, because they were not murdered, but they kind of were, right? Like their careers were taken away, the family life was, all of that. Just briefly, just share on that.
So my parents finished the college education in China um, around like in 1965. That was right before the beginning of China's Great Cultural Revolution. So the Communist Party do not like education. They do not like intellectuals because they believe that once you are educated, you have your own judgment of what is right, what is wrong. So my parents both graduated from top universities in China, and so they became targets of the Communist Party. Right? My parents were married right after college, but they were separated by the government. They were taken to two provinces to work, and they were only allowed to see each other like a few weeks per year. So they lived separately for around 10 years. And my dad thought he could become a nuclear scientist, but he was taken to a coal mine and dig the coal for 10 years. My mom thought she can enter the central government because she graduated from Renmin University, a top university in political science, and she was expecting to work for the government as an official. But she was taken to another province from my dad and worked as a secretary for a car manufacturing company for the rest of her life. So they were live separated. They were only allowed to move together when my dad's health deteriorated in the coal mine because of the malnutrition. And he was dying at that time. That was when the Communist Party said, okay, you can live with your wife now so that your wife can take care of you. That was how my dad was allowed to move to my mom's workplace. So, my parents, right, they suffered a lot. They lost their career. My mom raised us like a single mother, you know, me and my brother, like a single mother for many, many years. And they thought they were not persecuted because everyone in China lived like that. When I
Right.
was a child, I did not realize that married couples are supposed to live together because I have so many friends' parents live in
Wow.
different places and they were only allowed to see each other like 2 weeks per year, right?
Wow.
I had no idea that married couples were supposed to live together. So here is the concept, right? Like when you say persecution, you live in a world of freedom, like in America. You cannot imagine a married couple are forced to live separately for years, right?
Yeah.
But in China, because it's so common, people just thought this is a way to
Yeah.
be, like this is normal life. They don't think it was persecution, even though they suffered so much, right?
Right.
Just because everyone lived that, they don't realize it's persecution.
Yeah.
So,
And
but I
and
learned
the
all of this after I come to the US. I
right.
learned how human beings should live,
Right.
and
Freedom, and that's the beauty of the United States, right? At the founding, the idea was that we are all given by our creator the right to life. That's a good thing. Freedom, and the pursuit of happiness. And what happens with these spiritual forces that come in this case it's the Communist Party. In other places they have different names. We have things like the Hamas and Taliban and all these different ways that it'll manifest and stuff. But there's this whole culture of death that's out there, and it leads to a persecution, and you start to devalue things like education, freedom, all those things, and it comes to a people group being persecuted. And I think that's where we can jump in and bring Cindy into the conversation, because the persecution can lead to that whole dehumanizing of individuals to the point that it leads to what we're going to be sharing today.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you for having me here. And it's so interesting to hear about what Dr. Wen Chen told, telling her stories. So when we're talking about demonization of a certain religious group that happens in various period of in China, targeting various religious group, but now we're talking about the most recent one, the largest population in China, 70 million Chinese people are practicing Falun Gong. It's an ancient Chinese belief centered on a philosophy of truthfulness, compassion, forbearance. Also have five sets of gentle exercises, including meditation. Back in 1990s, it was very, very popular in China. Every morning, if you walk on the street in Beijing, you could see people gather in different
I,
park. They're
I think
doing
I've
their
seen
exercises.
videos of
Yeah.
it where they would be out doing the exercises and yeah.
Uh, I'd like to share my personal story. Back then, in 1999, I was a prosecutor in China, very young prosecutor, fresh out of school. I remember that was May, in the middle of, in the early May, I believe that was in the, no, in the end of May. One day we were suddenly, there was an urgent call that everybody go to the meeting room, have an important meeting. When we were there, they told us you cannot record anything, you cannot take notes. You have to remember whatever you were told here, and then you have to share the story with the public by your own word, using your own words. Then they were reading the letters the then President Jiang Zemin wrote to his colleague about Falun Gong. The letter was written on at the night of May 25th. So Jiang Zemin wrote a letter to his colleague in the political, to in the colleague, he indicating that his intention to persecute Falun Gong. He, when I was listening to the letter, there are no grounds, there are no real evidences. He just telling that he want to eliminate this group of people from Chinese society. And then there was order from our boss, meaning you have to collect cases where Falun Gong committed suicide or murder and report them to the Department of Publicity for them to share the story with the public. I was very shocked at the time because when we were working at the prosecutor's office, we're working closely with the media. Whenever there was odd cases, it will go out immediately. But we don't have these cases. But now they told us you have to have those. It's a political task.
Yeah.
So I was shocked. I was 23 years old. I was thinking, what's the hell is going on? You are trying to
Right.
defaming this group of people. You don't have
Yeah,
those cases. You don't
the
tell
law
us.
doesn't work this way, does it? It's
I had an argument with my boss that time. So because I think it was very wrong. So I told my boss, law was supposed to maintain the justice for the society. My boss said, you are too naive. You don't know. Law is just a tool for the ruling party.
oh wow.
I was eye opening for me.
So
And
law is just a tool for the ruling party. I wonder
yes,
how many people believe that because
that's the
and function that way, right?
yeah, that was my boss told me. My boss, no, you're wrong. This is what law is.
Right. It's supposed to be blind,
Um,
right? Equal. Yeah.
Yeah, and then that was the end of May. After 2 months, that's July 22nd. I remember back then my mother was complaining, oh, our TV remote control was broken because she couldn't change the channel. All the channels are broadcasting same content. The content were pre-recorded program was labeling Falun Gong as a murder, a killer. It just, they have a pre-recorded this program just precisely according what they were instructed to do.
Wow. Yeah. So I know there's different evil leadership that will say, show me the man, I'll show you the crime when they're wanting to deal with those that they don't agree with. And when when evil gets in power, that's what happens, right? They use that power to oppress others rather than giving the freedom, the right to communicate, to worship. You know, it, tell me those three principles of this group that is being persecuted again, because they have three foundational principles within the group, correct?
Maybe Dr. Wen Chen is better, could explain that better.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Well, I think like Danny's talking about the principle of Falun Gong,
yeah,
truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance.
yeah,
And this is a principle. I think this is a principle that is agreed from all people from all different backgrounds.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
this is
Yeah,
a
you don't
basic
have to agree with
principle of
that.
humanity.
However, there, whatever you think of worship or whatever, ideas. Like for me, I come from a Christian background. I believe in Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. I believe He's the only way. But I believe in that we all have freedom. That I should protect everybody's right to live, which is what we're talking about here. The right to worship as they see fit, the right to own property, to have a family and live with your family. These just basic human principles that are so important, and it's been lost. And so the spiritual forces that are at work are going to go after all different people, all the weak and the different ones, or sometimes the strong. In this case, this was a group that was strong, healthy, right? The community was growing in very positive ways. I think you could look at the matrix in so many different ways and say it's positive, and then a ruling group saying, this doesn't work for me. This is a problem for us, so we need to take care of it. And coming and you're seeing this firsthand, where they're coming and saying, okay, let's find a crime. Okay, let's say they're murderers. Let's say they're this. Let's make sure that they're guilty, and even deciding what they're guilty of ahead of time. And that's leading down the road. To where does this go, Cindy? Because I think you've got some things that you're sharing, and you've got a film and things you're working on. So tell me about that.
Oh, thank you, Denise. So we had to produce this document, a feature-length documentary called State Organs. It won 50 international film awards and recognitions. Also, it is qualified for Oscar for 2025 Oscar in the two categories, and Best Music and Best Feature-length Documentary. The movie follows two Chinese families in their 20-year search for their loved ones. They were taken away by the police, and and then they disappeared while they were in police custody.
Mm.
Their families have been pursuing the truth for 20 years, and they unveil this uh, government-run organ harvesting operation with thousands of victims, and continue to this day.
Wow.
Um, you may heard about on September 9th, China's leader Xi Jinping and the Russian leader Putin and North Korea Kim.
Yeah.
While they were walking to the military parade, they're talking about they can using repeated organ transplant to live longer, even getting immortality. So
Yeah.
that, yeah.
There's a whole culture that I guess many of us may not even be familiar with, that are very obsessed with those types of things, right? Human longevity, doing all kinds of different scientific things, and really pushing the boundaries sometimes of science as well. And when it comes to organs, the idea then is a younger organ or a healthier organ in replace of one that isn't. And this has really become a business, hasn't it?
Yes, it's really became it's a government-run businesses, so it's hard to get a real number because China was such a closed country. But there's independent tribunal in London. It's China Tribunal. After 1 year, more than 1 year hearings, and they issued a ruling in 2020. It's about 950 pages ruling that summarizes all the evidences. They even invited Chinese government to have submissions,
Mhm.
but eventually they have this ruling. The conclusion beyond a reasonable doubt, forced organ harvesting is happening in China for many years, starting from late 1999, and it's continuing. Every year, their rough estimation was every year there's about 65 to 90,000 organ transplant took place in China without identifiable sources, and the largest group of victims are Falun Gong. Falun Gong is probably the main source of the forced organ harvesting.
Right. They're not the only ones, right? To be clear, because
Yeah,
we got these enemy ideas, these spiritual forces, this culture of death, all of this, and then you've got these individuals that feel what very entitled, and some of them are tricked, right? There are wealthy foreigners that are being tricked into thinking that this transplant's legitimate, that everything's being done properly, and one of the things that I think, for Win, as you are in this journey and you're finding out, wait, okay, Tiananmen Square, all of this, and COVID was a big one too, right? With the in science, and you're seeing, wait, there's a lot of lies going on, and then you're getting to this point. Hold on now, we got hu- human organs being harvested. You said what, 65,000 to 80,000 that yeah, go ahead.
65,000 to 90,000 organ transplant took place in China every year without these identifiable
Every
sources.
year that's not identifiable. There's also other ones going on that are identifiable that may or may not be legit and identifiable, but that's an incredible number. And yeah, that's it's become a business for the government, right? It's not,
Yeah.
in America, we would always go after, we'd think, bad big pharma, bad big, business or whatever. But in this case, it's a big moneymaker for the government and the system, right?
Let me further explain a little bit because in other parts of the world, they have organ donation system. Like in the United States, in Canada, you sign your driver license on the back of a driver license. There was the organ donation form, but this kind of organ donation system doesn't exist in China. And recently, they're trying to start one, but it's really not effective. Another is car accident victims. In China, there's no brain death law allowing to sourcing organs from a car accident victim or brain death victim. They're trying to make one, but for so many years they have been doing organ transplant. Those organ donation system and brain death law is really not in place. So the where the other in the other countries they get organ from brain death donors, but it doesn't exist in China. But at the same time, they are doing a large amount of organ transplant. And according to World Health Organization, organ transplant has to be transparent, has to be accountable, there has to
Yeah.
be traceability, but it doesn't happen in China. So when the patient go to China to purchase organs, you don't know where the organs come from. You don't know the donor. You couldn't check their history. You don't know who they are. They even couldn't show thanks to the organ donor's family. Um, Also, those operation was driven by money. They're poor medical standard. So many patients actually die on the operation bed. When they died, the hospital simply give them excuses.
Right.
So those are not
It's a little
good
little more
standard.
convenient and a little less expensive if someone dies, and then, oh, but their organs are still healthy, so I guess we could use that.
To this conversation that China started this practice in the 80s, right? They had been using death row
Yeah.
prisoners' organs, right? That was convenient, right? But then they discovered the Falun Gong as the best donors because this is a meditation group. People meditate. They live a healthy lifestyle, right? Like you don't have, to worry about HIV and other stuff. So people want Falun Gong's organs because these are healthy people. And And then, the practice of the Communist Party will not stop at Falun Gong because they have a gigantic system, right? They want to sell more organs. And after Falun Gong went underground, it became more and more challenging to find them, to catch them. And then, the government started to target other groups. That's when they started to sequence the DNAs of all the Uyghurs. So the Chinese government already sequenced the DNA and tested blood type of 100% of Uyghur population and make them like a easy target for organ
Yeah.
transplant. And especially Uyghurs, they are practice they're Islamic, right? They do not eat pork, and that fit the needs of wealthy patients from countries like Iran. They want halal organs. They want organ from people who never ate pork, and they would prefer Uyghurs organs.
Yeah,
And
it's
nowadays, we also
and with the Uyghurs, they've got more of the genetic background, right? In a kind of a stability there. And then with the other group, with the Falun Gong, it's more of the health side. It's more of the physical side
yeah.
of it.
And nowadays, we also hear in China more and more students disappear. High school students, college
Mm,
students, and about 20 years ago, right? The Chinese people wouldn't believe there was organ harvesting. They thought, oh, that's just Falun Gong. It's not our business. As long
yeah.
as we don't practice Falun Gong, we're not Uyghurs. We're
Well,
fine.
there's something weird about them anyway, or whatever. Or, they're not one
So you
of
see,
us. So yeah.
yeah, this is the propaganda, right? Basically, the propaganda of the communism is say like once you stay away from this minority, you're okay. But now it is no longer minority, right? If you see students disappear, right?
Yeah.
Like all high school students or college students, once you enter the school, you have to do the physical checkup. They test your blood. Then basically that they know your blood type, and they can sequence their DNAs
Yeah,
and
there's a
then
lot more genetic testing going on now, isn't there?
yeah, yeah. So especially if you connect this with this hot mic incident, like about the conversation of Xi Jinping and Putin about like how they can extend human life to 150 years through organ transplants, and you think about all the disappearing people in China.
Yeah,
I mean, that all connect together.
and going to where this goes over to all the different nations, right? You have with the war in Ukraine, what you have a lot of children disappearing. You have different ones, and there's also other different military groups that are being used in different ways, and just you just see the way this culture of death and destruction just wants to come, and in so many ways just destroy lives, destroy
Yeah,
families. That you're talking about a 20-year journey that you were documenting, Cindy, with those
yeah.
families. That's an incredible amount of time to be not having all the answers or learning all the different things. Share a little bit about that.
Yeah, see, there's one witnesses. We actually reach out to different witnesses trying to get their story out. There's one special witnesses. Used to be a military surgeon. He was internship back that time. He was in there's let's see the boy he was ordered. He was in a military operation where he was ordered to take organs and kidneys and eyeballs from a 17-year-old soldier.
Mm,
The soldier was from countryside. He was from poor family. His mother used 10,000 yuan to bribe the officer to bring him into the army in the hope that he will get a better job in the future.
oh,
But because he's a simple country boy, didn't know how to please the officer, how to bribe them to get his way. So he had a conflict with his supervisor, and he was locked up in a jail. They blood test him and found his blood type and tissue type match one of the high-ranking officer who need organ transplant. So they decided to kill him to get his two kidney and one eyeballs. So Dr. George Zheng, he was in the operation. When back then he was only internship, he was devastated by this operation because the boy was just looking at him. He know this was a living boy, 17-year-old boy. So that experience was
and even if he tried
devastating.
to do something at that point, he probably would have been the next one on the table. It's not like he was in
Yeah,
a position to do anything. So
he really, because it was a military operation. If he say no, he could be the next one.
yeah.
Um, but that was a heavy on his conscience. And also, like what we just talking about, missing and disappearance. There's two different concepts. One is called enforced disappearance. Enforced disappearance is a state crime. It was defined by the International Convention to protect all persons from enforced disappearance. It was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly in 2006. It defined enforced disappearance like this: the police took somebody away secretly and then put them into the detention secretly, and with the no put them, so the police abduct somebody secretly with the intention, followed by the denial of his whereabouts,
Mm,
with the intention to place the person outside judicial watch,
mm,
outside the protection of the law. So it often implies secret torture and murder secretly. It is a state crime. So basically, the police took somebody away without notifying their family. It's hard to imagine here in America because you have,
right.
if a police took somebody away, they have to tell their family. There's even Miranda warning, something like that. It doesn't happen in China. Most people, they were forced organ harvest. They never appeared before a judge. They never. There's no due procedure. Police just took them
Well, and
away.
you don't even know who took them, right? Like they just kind of whoever took them, you don't aren't even identified, are they?
Yeah, they took them away. They don't tell their family, even deny they took them away.
Yeah,
And their intention was put them just outside protection of the law, so the police can just deal with them without any notice, without any evidences. So it is actually works together with forced organ harvesting. For imagine if their family didn't know the police just took organ from their boy, they would just fight with them.
yeah.
So what the police do is just secretly, I don't know where your boys are. We don't know.
I haven't
So
heard of.
that 17-year-old boy soldier, his mother would never know what happened to his son, to her son.
No, no, because she would have believed whatever she was told, probably. Died in some battle or an accident or whatever they told her. I mean, there's so many lies that could be used in situations like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this kind of enforced disappearance is different from someone simply gone missing, or maybe some gangster outsider. What we're talking about organ harvesting in China, there's interesting thing. Recently, there are some Chinese doctors written articles on the international on medical journals, and they trying to push the international community from changing the definition of a death. So
Oh.
because in order to get organs, to make organ procurement much easier. But there's a discussion about when can you take people's organs, when is there can you can could declare a patient dead. So the China was using that to say, hey, other country are also harvesting organs before people dying. So they're also doing organ harvesting of something like this. But what we're talking about in China is the government is running that,
Mm.
is the government believe their people's organ belong to them, so they can just take people's organs, sell them. This
Sure.
concept doesn't happen in any parts of the world.
Mm.
This is a crime, state crime. That's different from maybe a recently
Right.
American Ministry of Health just say, oh, some hospital they may not they do something wrong. They took people's organ before the patient died,
Mm.
before they even dead, or may be a mistake by some medical professional. But what we're talking about forced organ harvesting in China is a state operation. It's
Yeah.
done systematically by the governments.
So
That's
so
not someone's.
normally we think of we do a government or a police or those kind of officials around us should be there to protect us, right? To defend us, not to come and take us and use us. And so it's really hard. And of course, in America, that is the idea. The freedom that we have, the founding of our country. Um, uh, we're having a show Saturday here in town. Bill Federer connected to Charlie Kirk, and you see, even with that, where he's like killed because of his political beliefs and stuff. And it's like, it's amazing how this kind of culture comes in and it just wants to stop and destroy and kill and all this. Where what's so important is for us to be able to have life, to have that freedom, and the government is supposed to protect that, right? To just stay out of our way and protect us. And how sad is it when there is a whole system set up? So it's not, and I would say that it's not who's even in control of the government. There's these systems that are just very corrupt, right? And some of the corrupt systems, the lie is, well, if the right people are in control, then it'll work right. And it's like, no, these systems are just a mess. You're not really empowering the people. You're not giving people their rights, their voice, their ability to choose, all of those things that are just so important and foundational to who we are, who we're created to be, really. Um, and so it's really sad when it's the government that should be protecting you that is actually has no value in you anymore, right? Um, Only if you can serve the system, only if you can serve the government, only if you can serve the power or the people, whatever it is, just a very dark, dark thing.
It goes to the fundamental ideology of communism, if I can say that, because we all the righteous religion, we believe human beings were created by the God or creator, whatever the name you say.
Right.
But we believe in the security of human lives.
Yeah.
But under communism ideology, human just advanced form of animals.
Mm.
And because the communism, they do not believe in God, they declare themselves as the owner of the truth or declare themselves to be the God.
Right.
So that give them unrestricted power. If
Mm.
you read there is a recent regulation. 2024, China issued a new regulation about human organ donation and transplantation. They actually say no human beings or no individuals or organizations you can do organ trade,
Mm.
but the implication is, or the government can do that.
Oh.
In China, there's no one can restrict government behavior. You cannot sue the government. You cannot, like media, criticize the government. So the government
There's
has
no
unchecked
oversight, no
restrict.
accountability, no.
No.
Yeah. And it really is the substituting a system, in this case communism, for God. You substitute a creator, and again, you get away from those values of life, that sanctity of life. I don't. It's hard for me to understand how people can devalue life so much, to be willing to destroy others, even kill others, and rejoice in it, or profit from it and think nothing about it. It's just very foreign to really who we are, who we should be, who we're created to be, ultimately.
Yes, it took 70 years for China to got to what we're having today. Before the communists took power, China had 5,000 years history. There's different religions, Buddhism, Taoism, and
Yeah.
different religion. They live harmoniously for thousands of years. People have really paid attention to their moral character. It's just normal society. But after communists took over, they took 70 years to indoctrinate the society, like they have a various rounds of political persecution targeting different group of people. When they first took power in 1950s, what they do is just kill 3 million religious staff. Eventually, like Christian Association in China in the 1950s, they started to believe, they even have a slogan on their wall: we love the party, then we love our God. So party is about the God. They have to see that.
Yeah.
In 1990s, when I was university students, I used to go to the church on a Sunday morning. But when I went to the church, there was a big slogan there: "We love the party, then we love our God." I was surprised. I thought we should love God first.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, yeah, and that's the way those systems work. And there's different ones. Again, like mentioned earlier, there's all different corrupt systems around, and that's what it is. You substitute to God for this system, for this party, for this group, for this leader. Even sometimes it's just a single person, whatever. And all of a sudden, that's what becomes important, and you lose the individual. Whenever we're unable to go to the weak and the wounded and the vulnerable, the innocent, and we're not willing to protect them, there's a problem. That's something that should just be, it's just natural inside of us to protect others, to help others that are weak, not to beat them down, not to disregard them, not to say they're useless, but to look at an opportunity to be able to serve someone else, to be able to help someone else, so that when we're in need, we can have others help us. And it's a shame that there are so many systems around that lose that and go down this other path. And it becomes about power and influence, but what is that power and influence for? What is that money for? What is all this about? Just to get more of that, to do more of this destruction to others, and eventually it ends up being you, right? I mean, when you saw that, like with your brother and stuff, right? Where here you are working within a system for years and years and years, and then all of a sudden they go, we don't need you anymore. Thanks anyway. In America, it used to be, the joke was, you got the gold watch, and left the place. But in a system like that, it's not quite as pleasant a parting a lot of times as, um, you know, the and they turn on themselves a lot of times too. What happens when you're not that person of influence anymore, that person of power, that person of money, or whatever. And it's such an empty system, isn't it? But I just thank you, ladies, for all the things you're sharing, and being willing to step out and talk about things that aren't so easy to talk about, and not everybody wants to hear.
So I hope people watching this video can explore the film that Cindy produced called The State Organs. You can watch it from Amazon and many other platforms. You can also visit the website, right? What is the website? What is your website, Cindy? State
It's a
Organs.
stateorgans.com, stateorgans.com. Yeah, the movie also available on Apple TV and Tubi, and but you can watch you can get a watchable link on stateorgans.com.
Good. I'll make a web page post for it tonight or tomorrow as well, where I'll add that link. And if you guys have anything else you want to share that I can share some information with, so there's an easy way to share as well. More and more people to hear and to understand. It's not necessarily an easy topic to explore and understand, but it's the truth. And it's well documented and well produced. The quality, like you talked about, even the awards and those types of things. But it's definitely not about that. It's about the truth that's in there, and the ability to be a witness, right? I think that's one of the big reasons for this show, and one of the reasons that I wanted you to be able to share today, and just keep doing this is, my Lord said that to be a witness. And of course, the main thing I love witnessing about is Him, but it's also just witnessing about the truth of what's happening in the world, what's happening in people's lives, the truth about different systems and things that are around, and individuals that need assistance, help, prayer. We need to deal with things like this. You can't just ignore it, right? Because eventually, the old saying, they came for one group and another, and then finally, when they come for you, there's nobody left to stand up. You gotta stand up for these individuals that are being persecuted, and for no other reason than they're just not within the right group. Um, Very sad. So, thank you for
Also,
sharing.
Dennis, I want to add that people can take actions by writing
Yes.
to their elected officials. And we have been, raising awareness for over 20 years, but until now, U.S. still have not passed a law to prevent Americans from going to China to buy organ.
Yeah.
Currently, there are two Senate bills in the U.S. Senate, right? One is called the Falun Gong Protection Act. I think the bill number is S 49 49. I can send you the bill number
Yeah,
later.
make sure you
Actually,
send me that
yeah,
too, so that I can add that to the post because I'll make
to
one
the post.
one post
Yes.
with that on there.
Yeah,
Um,
there's Falun Gong Protection Act. There's also a Stop Organ Harvesting, Forced Organ Harvesting bill. Both are passed
and
Congress. They're sitting in the Senate.
yeah,
That's the
because they
U.S.
but
federal level.
did they both pass earlier this year? Was that
They
the
passed the Congress.
okay?
Now they're sitting in the Senate.
So
They
there's
have to
oh,
pass the Senate so that the
I
president can
didn't know
sign it
that.
into
Okay,
law.
yeah, because I
Yeah,
remembered when they'd passed, but I didn't realize they didn't make it through. So okay, yeah, so we need
it
to
is Congress pass. That's the
yeah,
first
yeah,
step.
right,
Then you
right,
need to
right, right,
pass the
right,
Senate.
right.
Then the president can sign it,
Yeah, then they
right?
can be
But
signed. Yeah,
now they are just sitting in the Senate.
yeah,
So we need actions from people to write letters to your Senate, members to push the bill to pass. And
and
also in the state of Missouri, I know that's probably like your area. There's also a state level bill
yeah,
sitting in the state of Missouri. I think that's Senate Bill 817 um,
okay,
about stop organ harvesting in China that prevent local people from going to China
good,
to buy
yeah,
organs.
yeah,
So these all need actions. So those who are sitting, watching this video now, or
yeah,
those are going to watch this video later, there are
yeah,
actions you can take, and you can also share this video with your friends
yep,
because it is very important for us to be aware of this because the mainstream media they have business ties with China. They do
right,
not want to talk about it.
yeah,
And Hollywood do not want to talk about it because they want to do business in China. They want to show their film in China.
yeah,
So we rely on grassroots level voices. People like
absolutely,
you, Dennis, like your friends, your
yeah,
family, your audience,
yeah,
to spread the truth.
yeah, because yeah, the mainstream groups are not going to do it. It's amazing. I was listening to what was it on it wasn't Glenn Beck, but it was in one of the talk shows they had on the guy that was the NBA guy that lost his job because, he stood up against human rights and those types of things. And the CCP was like, yeah, you're not going to play basketball anymore. There goes your $40 million. Too bad. It's like that's the kind of power that some of these groups have because of the funding. And we see it so much in America where they can go in with money and influence and change. Well, we had things like on our Constitution here in Missouri and stuff, just all kinds of mess that they can go in. There was a show they were talking about this one town where these group of people are going in trying to take over this small town by taking over the city council and stuff because it's just a small town, so they only need a few people to come in and then take over and change things. And it's like, man, we gotta be so focused first in our lives in our families, but then realizing all the things that are happening in the world that we can be part of, that we can help with, that we can bring awareness to. It doesn't mean we have to run around holding a sign or anything, but we can be aware. We can pay attention to the votes that are important, to who is representing us, and are they standing up for other people's rights, or are they just standing up for some system around them? Because I tell you, we got systems just as corrupt in America, and groups that want to take over things in America just as bad or worse than what we're talking about here, and it leads to these types of things. And man, it's so sad to think that someone could be reduced to a commodity, that their body's just parts to be sold. I mean, that individual has a mother, right, and a father, and no one should have to go through that. So thank you for sharing what you're sharing, and make sure you get me the information on those bills and stuff, so I can share that information, and also continue. Any other last words and thoughts as we get ready to close out?
I really appreciate this podcast interview, Dennis, and I encourage those audience of this video take action by writing a letter to your elected officials or just share this video on your social media.
Cindy, you got anything?
Thank you, Denise. Thank you for having us on your program. So let's see, after the World War II, people always say never again, but now it's happening. this large scale of forced organ harvesting in China. But the difference is now we still have opportunity to stop this atrocity. We still have the opportunity to change the course of history by everyone. If we just do a small action, spreading the truth to your family, to your friends, to your elected representatives, together we can change China to a better country to make everyone live much safer.
Amen.
Thank
And
you.
make sure you're paying attention around you. You know, pay attention to what you're learning, what you're hearing, what you're studying, what you believe, right? Because there's all kinds of propaganda all around us, all kinds of lies and influence around us, and so important for us to know the truth. Don't just take some report for it. You know, do some investigating, and be willing to listen to people as they share a witness of what they've experienced, what they're going through, sharing their heart and the reality, and be willing to face some of those ugly things in the world. Because you know, if you have a wound or you have damage on you, you got to look at it to do the healing. You got to look at it to care for it, and sometimes you got to look at some ugly things to help with the healing. So thank you everyone for sharing. And I'm stopping the stream now. So we'll be clear here in just a second.